In this video, the Historic Ordnance series, I have another Viet Cong booby trap for you. This is the VC B-40 Anti-Tank Booby Trap. Now, the only manuals I found these in were from the U.S. Marine Corps, so this must be something they were finding up in that I-Corps area just south of the DMZ. It was not listed in the U.S. Army's booby trap manuals, which would be covering everything else south of that. So this one is pretty simple, and I think I know why they ended up doing this when I did some research on this. Now, basic construction on this, you had a piece of bamboo which acted as the launcher tube that they put the B-40 rocket into, or an RPG-2 rocket. The Vietnamese copy of it was referred to as a B-40. It's misidentified that B-40 is the Chinese copy. The B-40 is actually the Vietnamese copy. The Chinese had a completely another designation for it. On the side of the bamboo, they drilled a hole and ran a couple electrical leads into the tube to set off the rocket. Now, how these were typically set up, from what info I could find on it, it said that they were typically placed at a roughly a 45-degree angle. They were initiated by either command detonation, most likely with a battery to get enough power to ignite the booster or ignite the propelling charge, or it was set off with an improvised pressure plate inside the road. So this was typically placed alongside of the road with the pressure plate inside the road. Battery was probably with the pressure plate. Wires were hidden in the roadway. These weren't concrete roads. These were dirt roads or clay roads. Camouflage coming over to the side. And then inside the bamboo here, you had the rocket with the electrical leads attached. Now, this propelling charge you see on the back here, all that is granulated gunpowder. And what that is, all that propelling charge does, when the RPG rocket, in this case an RPG-2 type rocket, was ignited by the launcher, you have a recoilless rifle effect. You have the rocket motor, which is in here, and you had a propelling charge which would push it out of the tube and away from the gunner before the rocket would ignite. So they bypassed the main rocket here, just went with the propelling charge, which was not an issue. This is close range. You anticipated that your target was going to be right up on it, and they were trying to angle it to hit the more vulnerable parts. Now, if you don't know much about the tanks that the U.S. used in the 1960s into the late 1970s, and I'm talking like the M48s and earlier, they had kind of a boat-shaped hull on it. They weren't angled. So in order to get a good strike on it to penetrate, you're going to have to angle your rocket so that it does kind of hit at a 90-degree angle to the plate, so it has less distance to try to penetrate. Now, the actual penetration on a B-40, according to the U.S. Army, is 7 inches of armor. So around 1962, that's when the North Vietnamese started realizing that, hey, the American tanks are a bit more advanced. Our B-40s may not be able to penetrate. It may not be able to get through all that armor, but they can still work against armored personnel carriers. They still can work against lightly armed vehicles. And that's what they're trying to do. You would have your pressure plate in the road out here. This set at roughly a 45-degree angle to the vehicle, hidden in the brush on the side. The truck or whatever would come, set off that pressure plate. It would make the contact there, sending the current through, igniting the rocket. That rocket would get targeted for either hitting the engine, trying to get up underneath that fender right past the tire, or it would be aimed for trying to hit the door on the side to try to take out the crew inside the truck, or potentially hit the fuel tank on the side to try to ignite the fuel. Something like this, they wouldn't necessarily, have a big separation between the pressure plate and the rocket to try to hit the back of the truck unless they knew for certain there was going to be troops inside there. But there's no guarantee you're going to know that. The VC did have pretty good intelligence, but, wasn't that great. You're not always going to know that, hey, there's a couple trucks of troops heading on this road. This is the side of the road they're going to be on, and so forth. Now, how this set it off, what it looks like to me, as I said, this is granulated gunpowder inside the propelling charge. So what they probably did, on the base of it here, made a small hole with a knife. And then they took the two wires here, had an igniter, fed it into the bottom of the propelling charge here, and then probably sealed it with wax to keep moisture from getting inside and completely neutralizing the gunpowder. So you had the vehicle come along, pressure plate would come together, make contact, complete the circuit, charge would come through, heat up the igniter would heat up the gunpowder inside here, launch the rocket up into the side of the target. Pretty straightforward, and I think the reason that they started using this type of booby trap against vehicles was because they couldn't guarantee that the RPG-2 and the Vietnamese B-40 copies or the Chinese copies would work against American-made armor, especially the M48. But, why let it go to waste? Turn it into a booby trap. The RPG-2 and the B-40 rocket was replaced even in Viet Cong service with the RPG-7 that the Soviets designed. A lot better armor penetration capabilities and a lot better range. So they just took the old rockets, obsolete, still kept using them, while they upgraded for the actual soldier-launched weapon to take out enemy armor. They upgraded to a better system. Now, has this type of booby trap been used somewhere else? Yes. I know for a fact that in Iraq, some of the insurgents did something similar. I talked to a guy not long before I retired. It was a couple years after he did his tour in country. And he mentioned in his area that the insurgents would take pieces of metal pipe or even PVC pipe, and they would basically do this same setup. They had a pressure plate inside the road. They would have an RPG-7 rocket inside here instead of an RPG-2 rocket. And they would try to aim it for the windows on the side of the MRAPs or straight in from the side into the doors. I don't remember if he said they had any vehicles actually taken out by it. He said they did encounter a few of them. He said another thing that they encountered was the insurgents would do the same type of setup, but they would use Chinese 107 millimeter rockets, which were meant for, rocket artillery, not for taking out pieces of armor. He said they did come across a bunch of those, and those were typically high enough or angled in a way from on the side that it would hit the side of a fuel tanker to try to explode all the fuel inside the tank and take out a good chunk of the convoy. So this type of thing is still being done now in the Middle East, not with the RPG-2s, but they could, because reportedly the only countries that still use the RPG-2 in any decent number is the Middle East. Nowhere else are they used, not even in Africa. But this type of thing is out there. Very simple to set up, very simple to neutralize. How you would neutralize it, you would go through, find the firing wires, cut them individually, one at a time, so that you do not accidentally connect the circuit. So you cut one lead, then you cut the other lead, spread them far apart so they don't touch together. Then you go disable the rocket, remove the igniter from inside the propelling charge, and then go and take care of the pressure plate. So there you go. The Viet Cong B-40 anti-tank booby trap. Now for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember SA-ons.